Dawson, and this is my DOM on why kids should grow up playing sports. Oh, that's not working. Okay, so my thesis is that parents should have their elementary school kids play a variety of sports because it helps kids socialize, gets them to be active, and might turn into a long-term interest. But let's focus on this part of my thesis, that it will help kids socialize. But before we do that, we need to know these three words, which are play, game, and sport. And there's a relationship between these words, and that within play there is game, and within game there is sport. Play is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as to engage in activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than a serious or practical purpose. Play can be achieved even through the smallest of things, like a little baby even just punching its fist or kicking its feet in the air. That's play. But play isn't just important for humans because it's important for animals too. Sea otters and dolphins specifically are known as some of the most playful and social creatures in the animal kingdom. Sea otters specifically engage in educational play, where they wrestle and spar as little sea otter pups, which can help them in their futures when they're trying to fend off predators. Or they crack rocks together as sea otter pups, which can help them in their future when they need to crack clams together for food. Dolphins also engage in educational play, but it's more so to help them socialize with each other inside their cliques. Someone who didn't get a lot of socialization was the monster in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The monster was abandoned by Victor the moment he was created, and this led the monster to become scared, because even though he didn't look like, a child, he looked like an 8-foot-tall abomination, he had the mind of an infant. And after many people hurt him and discriminated against him, he became vengeful, and this led to him becoming the murderous monster we know. I think that if the monster hadn't been shunned from society for the way he looked, he would have had a chance to socialize with people and become normal in society. But Victor didn't get much socialization either, because he only grew up with his siblings, 2 friends, and parents. And when he went to college, he didn't have any social skills to make friends, nor did he want any. The only mentors he did have, which were his teachers, he ignored because they disagreed with his crazy ideas. This led to him creating the monster, and I think that if Victor had got more socialization as a kid and was connected to people instead of being isolated, he would have had a better chance at choosing the right path. Game is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as an activity that you do to have fun, often one that has rules or that you can win or lose. Play becomes game when rules are added. And finally, sport. Sport is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. Sport is when game becomes organized. Now, there are 3 important values that can be learned through sport. These values were an important part of the French Revolution, but before we get to that, we'll need to go over these values and how they were understood in France. These values are liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty is defined in the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen in Article 4 as everyone should have the same rights as long as those rights don't harm others. Equality is defined in the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen in Article 6 as the rules have to be the same for everybody and that everyone should have a chance to work according to what they are able to do. Now, fraternity has had different definitions in France over the years, but in general, its meaning always meant that community was more valuable than individuality. Now, in the mid-1700s, there was an estate system in place in France. The first estate was the clergy, or people who worked in the church. The second estate was the nobility, or the king, queen, princes, princesses, all that. And the third estate was everyone else. Now, the third estate was the largest, but even though it was the largest, they had the least amount of power over how they were governed. But after the invention of the printing press, the third estate had more access to reading materials and therefore became more educated. And this led to them being able to overthrow the French government by organizing themselves around the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And this led to them forming a new government with these values at the core. And sports provide the opportunity for kids to learn these values today. So liberty can be learned in youth sports because in order for sports competitions to be fair, the rules have to be the same for everyone. We can see this with the U.S. Soccer Federation, where it splits off into U.S. club soccer and U.S. youth soccer. And under U.S. club soccer, there's NorCal. And under U.S. youth soccer, there's Cal North, CYSA, California Youth Soccer Association, and SYSA, Stockton Youth Soccer Association. And we can see liberty in this because even though they're all different organizations, they all have to play under the same rules. Equality is also learned through youth sports because all kids have the right to participate in sports. This can be seen in Title IX. Now, what is Title IX? Well, in my research report, I took a look at Title IX, which came about in 1972, and determined that any school that received funds from the government had to offer an equal number of scholarships to girls as well as boys. This made sports more accessible than they had been to girls and had an influence on sports availability to girls across the country. Fraternity is also important to youth sports because kids have to work with their teammates to improve their skill, and this time spent with teammates creates bonds. Now you may be thinking, well, there's not just team sports, there's also individual sports. Well, you can learn fraternity through individual sports as well, because they almost always train like in a club or a team or with a training partner. And they also have the opportunity to build a bond with their coach. This is an image from the Library of Congress, and an argument can be made that there are many cases where parents force their kid to play sports they don't want to play sports, and kids who are uninterested in participating can be easily distracted or lack the ability to pay attention. This can lead to kids getting hurt during practices or games. And we can see a connection in the Industrial Revolution, even in this picture, where this is a young child being forced to work in a factory, and they were often forced to work in the factories because their hands were small and they could fit inside the machines, but this often led to the kids getting hurt. It's important to note that there are many ways that a parent can take away a kid's choice, like forcing them to participate in a family sport, forcing them to specialize in a sport they don't want to specialize in, or forcing them to play sports when they don't want to play sports at all. And parents forcing a kid to play a sport when they don't want to might cause the kid to be stressed from doing something they don't want to do and could leave the kid with a negative experience. Now, let's focus on this part of my thesis, that it might turn into a long-term interest. This is my uncle, and he's been playing sports from a very young age 5, pretty much since he could, and he's been playing a variety of sports until high school when he decided to specialize in soccer. And this is just a list of some of the jobs he's had since then. And I organized an interview with him that I'm going to play now. Do you think your parents made a good choice in letting you play different sports, or do you think it would have been better for them to let you focus on soccer?
I spent a lot of time traveling to the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Italy, England. I've talked to coaches at the highest level, and even some youth academies at the very top level, like Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Barcelona even. They encourage their athletes to do multiple sports because the amount of dexterity, balance, coordination that you develop actually builds athleticism.
What skills do you see the kids in your soccer clubs developing that will help them in their future jobs?
I believe in teaching the total person, not just a soccer player. So you're coming to us to teach skills that are related to soccer. However, it is our goal to train the total person. So we have core values: integrity, honesty, discipline, positive attitude, open-mindedness. And so what we try to do is we try to instill those in every training session that we do. Integrity, doing the right thing when no one's watching. So if there's 11 kids out there and just one coach, and I set up these games or drills and it's an individual thing, are you doing the right thing when I'm not watching? So when I turn and you're not looking, I'll ask you, are you showing displaying integrity today, which is one of our core values? No. What does that mean? Okay, I'm going to go back over here. How can you display it even when no one's watching you? So those sports are not inherently a agent that builds all these characters, but us as leaders, we can use it as a way to do that. Teamwork, camaraderie, leadership, integrity, motivating, how can you work harder to achieve your goals, goal setting. So that's what we try to do. We try to instill the values in what we do and then help kids prepare for their futures.
In your expert opinion, do you think playing sports helps kids do better in school?
Activity in general has been proven to make kids perform better in school. So when you get out and you're active and you exercise the body, it actually stimulates the mind and it helps you concentrate more. So kids oftentimes get restless in the school environment, and just going out recess, PE, those things help them perform better. I certainly think sports, and if children want to do it, competitive sports, help them excel in the classroom because there's an outlet for them to concentrate in a different way. Also, the core values that we're teaching them correlate into the classroom, and vice versa. The core values that teachers are instilling in the classroom about getting work done, hitting timelines, those also benefit in the sports realm. So there's a lot of correlation in that sense, and so 100%, sport definitely stimulates the mental capacity for people to go in and then concentrate and do the work that you want to do.
Thank you for being here for the interview.
My pleasure, anytime.
So that was professionally filmed by my little brother, if you couldn't tell. But the full video was, it was like 15 minutes, so I really don't blame him. But yeah, let me see. Can I fix that? No, don't play again. Okay, there we go. Anyways, I posted the full thing, the full interview, and that one on my YouTube channel, and I don't know how to make a QR code, so that's what my channel looks like. If you want to watch it, you can. And also, like my uncle said, if you, for some reason, can't play a sport or don't want to, if you have a disability or just don't like sports, then movement in general can help you, and it has many of the same benefits as playing sports. So taking a walk, going out in the park, kicking a ball around, shooting hoops, all of that. Let's look at this next part of my thesis that it says it can get kids to be active. So I sent a survey out around BrainWorks on Jupiter, and one of the questions I asked was, if you've never played sports, have you ever wanted to? And 62.9% of people said yes. And the second highest answer margin, which was maybe, was 25.7%. And this shows that most people that haven't played sports do want to, and there's outside factors that are causing them to not be able to play sports. And one of the other questions I asked was, if you are currently playing a sport, would you be open to trying a new sport? And the highest one was 54.3% at yes. And I think that's good because it shows that people who are playing a sport, they're fine with having variety in what they play. They are open to trying new things. Now, why not? One of the other questions I asked, which will lead back to this one right here, that question, is why do you think that kids don't play sports? And 5 of the most common answers I got were lack of time in either the student schedule or the parents, fear of judgment, either of their skills or of their fitness level, lack of access, like the school doesn't offer the sports. I know Venture doesn't offer a lot of sports. Football is a big one. Swimming, tennis, those are sports, like they're hard to find outside of school. Fear of getting hurt, either the parent fears the child getting hurt or the kid themselves fears getting hurt, and laziness. And this is where Project Play comes in. Project Play is an organization, it's a study being done by Aspen Institute, and their motto is Sport for All, Play for Life. And they have a Children's Bill of Rights. They teach how to improve school and youth sports. They work with community leaders throughout the United States to develop, apply, and share knowledge that builds healthy communities through sports. They work with the UN to help improve youth sports internationally. And they identify access and quality gaps in youth sports activities and help organizations fill those gaps. And they also have a lot of partners, and they have a lot more on their website, but I just picked out some of the most recognizable ones, like, Under Armour, Nike, Major League Soccer USA, PGA, ESPN, and NBA. And they also have ambassadors like Steph Curry. This is a study done on their website, and we're just going to look at this blue part because that's team sports done on a regular basis. And you can see the decrease in participation since 2019. It went from 39.6% in 2019 to 2022, 37.4%. And that's a 5.6% decrease. And you could say, oh, it could be due to the pandemic, but you can see even after the pandemic was over, it's still declining. So Project Play, their whole purpose is to do these studies and figure out how they can get that number back up. So this leads me back to my thesis, which I still believe to be true, even after all my research and this whole presentation, that parents should have their elementary school kids play a variety of sports because it helps kids socialize, gets them to be active, and might turn into a long-term interest. And in conclusion, go play a sport, or if you want to, go take a walk, or go play in the park with your friends, or if you have little siblings or any younger member of the family, go to their games and support them so they're encouraged to play sports. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
What you did for English. You hopped in, talked about Frankenstein with Victor and the monster, and you're like, these are people who were never socialized and who lack the kind of social interaction that's going to make them stable, right? And you're like, and here's all the terrible things they went on to do and or cause. That was super cool. It was a little quick. I'd say keep that kind of stuff and just slow it down a little bit so we have really some time to like savor those points that you're making, because they're all good points about like, maybe if somebody was more friendly to Victor, or if he was a part of a team of some kind, maybe that would have changed things, The second part of that would be throw some quotes in there that illustrate those individual parts, individual moments where Victor's being sad, where Victor's being angry, where the monster's being lonely, that kind of stuff. Just to kind of really highlight those moments. But yeah, there's some cool stuff there. Nice job.
Yeah, there was a lot of good things about your presentation, Ash. I like the structure of it, and I like that you had like a really systematic approach to trying to prove your thesis. Your video was cool. Most students who do videos, it's very like impossible to hear the sound. So I appreciate that I don't know how you made the sound good, but it was awesome when we could hear it, which was great. For your history, you have all the parts that I look for there. So you mentioned a primary source, talked about like foundational content. I think the areas for improvement, so like the components are there. Where we push it to the next level is making sure that the information's coming more directly from you instead of reading a little bit. We're relying on reading just a bit, and then pushing the connection to the thesis. It's a hard topic to connect. It doesn't like naturally connect super well with what we learned in history, so it was definitely a challenge. But pushing to find. That's the area from here. And I wrote more comments in here that you can read, but that's where we go from here. But you have all the parts there, and there was a lot of your presentation that was really cool.
Okay, so I had to come in towards the end because I had to get my final started. That's totally okay. So I missed all the content part, but I liked how, because at some point I thought, oh, I've missed the whole presentation. But I thought you did a really good job of going back to your thesis and like after your content had been done, like keep hitting what was going on with your thesis and trying to prove your point. I thought it was really cool that you had done a little bit of action research and you put those questions out to the Brainworks students, and you took the time, I mean, I don't have you for math, but you took the time to interpret those results, and I thought that was a really cool way to like just add a little bit more credibility to your claim in seeing what the students here at Brainworks think. So I thought that was really cool. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.